Okay, so I'm going to do a recording off of another recording. I wrote the previous recording down and I'm going to read what I wrote. War horses, frontline, foot soldiers, these are intercessors, okay, whether they be men or women. And I'm going to specifically talk about women, even though they can be either one. These are kind of like Wonder Women. These are those that have been held back in their lives for such a time as this. Like maybe Anna, you would think she was held back, but really this was like for her life. This call, she was reserved for something good. She waited, and she was a type of I would say, like in the heavens, the Lord showed me these war horses, and she's like an international, global intercessor type woman. These women, you know, it's much like the way you would need to look at an Abigail. The one event she did shifted a nation. So this is one of those things where Anna was one of those women that shifted a nation. There's other people in the Bible I can pull up. Mary, she was another one. Deborah, she was another one. So these are women that are called, what I felt like the Lord showed me as I was praying that day. It was on a Thursday, and I recorded this prayer. Thankfully, I'm so glad I did. I recorded this prayer in my voice recorder, and then later wrote it down. Many months later wrote it down. And now I'm just recording it to where I can share it. So these are types of announcers. They've kind of been like waiting in the stall. These are like horses in the stall. These are kind of like waiting, like the 10 virgins were waiting, and then they were told to arise. And then there was a point in my praying that I saw what I didn't see this, but it was like I was hearing, but I was seeing. Sometimes your ears can see. And I was sensing this word in my knower called a closet vulture. And they eat whatever they can find. They've not been through process like the war horses or the ones in the stalls or the 10 virgins. Maybe the 5 have been prepared and the 5 haven't. But you do get to the place where you're in the waiting period. And if you've processed enough, like half of the 10 virgins, then you can go on to reveal your light. But this is real interesting as the Lord showed that to me. But there are some that there's something called a closet vulture that you have. This is sort of like a spirit that you have an ability to speak the word of the Lord, but it's very contaminated. Almost like you have this calling, but you have not been willing to be processed by the Lord, because I know we all have a calling of the Lord, and until we're processed, isn't going to be seamless. So I wrote down here, they've not been processed like the war horses. The war horses are seamless, and they've been processed, and they bear the veil. They are the hidden ones. Bearing the veil means you have gone through the veil, and you understand the hidden place of the Lord. That doesn't mean you're covered. Your face is covered and you have to have this veil on your face. That's not what I'm talking about. It means the enemy can't see you. because you're hidden. You're hidden in the mountain. You're sort of veiled away from evil. It's like, and Moses had a veil on his face, but it was because the children of Israel couldn't stand the glory that was on him, so the Lord had to veil it. So there's this the closet vulture thing that I'm mentioning. It has this sense of the Antichrist. And they do things in the dark instead of in the light. They make strategy plans to defeat God. So as I was praying that Thursday, I was actually cleaning. And as I walked and cleaned, you know, vacuumed, and all of this noises in the back of this video, the Lord just downloaded for a good 45 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it was. I have to look back and look, but I just kept going and going, and then I just had this knowing that I better be sure to keep this voicemail, because I'm going to go back and listen to this thing. And I had to kind of decipher some of the stuff that I was talking about. And then back months later, then I wrote it down. So I'm having to pull from memory and then decipher all of this written stuff too. So I hope that I'm saying this the way that it needs to be said. Then there's the closet vultures that are Antichrist, and they are hidden. But it's because they are doing these things in the dark, not because they're hidden away from the Lord, like hidden, like because the Lord has hidden them for such a time as this, and then the Lord is going to release what the Lord has spoken to them in this hidden place, and is going to destroy the hidden darkness, or the darkness of the enemy. These people do things in the darkness. They make strategies and plans. This is the closet vultures. They make plans in the darkness to defeat God, people of God, and just people. And they specifically target God's people that are hidden in the mountain. So then I said, angels come forward, bring judgment against these closet vultures. Bring your spotlight and then I said, we as spotlights block the enemy. Then I said, use us as spotlights. Open gates, revealing light by fire. Invade the courtrooms. And then I said something about victory and sound, glory and beauty, a Gideon's army. Separated, shifted, and stabilized. And then I'm writing here, I said, hear the feet stomping, running in victory. Oh, it's the bison. It's like I heard these feet tromping, and it made me think of the bison. You know, those big animals that stomp. And this declares, it was like almost I was seeing there's a victory. And as I'm praying this prayer that day, it's like a real time. This is like really, as I prayed this prayer, it was going into the heavens, into the bowl of prayers. And I knew that something was happening. This is what the intercessors sound like. They sound like bison stomping. They sound like bison's feet running. And these are your intercessors coming and fighting in battle. They are the good noise makers. And I was thinking about how music can be noisy, or it can be intercessor, like a type of intercession. And I know that in Scripture it talks about clanking cymbals, and in that Scripture, where, well, there's nothing wrong with music, but it can be a clanking, or it can be actually warfare. So this type of an intercessor, these war horses, are really the type of intercessors that that go behind enemies' lines, and they are really their sounds their fighting sounds are actually victorious. Their sound is not clanking cymbals and wasted a wasted sound, but their fighting sounds actually produce victory in warfare, and it's not noise making for nothing. Okay, so it brings the testimony of the Lord to the table, and it overturns victories in Jesus' name, overturning evil testimonies. And then I put angels of maturation, reserve angels, fully maturated, set them up in concourse. I don't know what that means. I'm just saying it. That's what I said while I was praying. The only thing I can make of that is that angels of maturation, or reserve angels, or angels that have been matured. If they can be matured, maybe they're being trained. Resolve angels, they are ones that are going to fight in battle to the end. Maybe they are end angels that are going to set up some type of end time victory. And then I heard this was a word of knowledge. I know that this was from the Lord, a word of knowledge. Set them up in concourse. I'm not sure what concourse is, but I like that word. Oh, these go into, so I went on to say, these go into courts, and they bring the sounds of biasins, the victory feet of those that intercede. These go into the courts, and they bring our intercession, which is the sounds of the biasins' feet. Wow. It's been a while since I've written this, and I have not read it again. Just found it today, and I wanted to read it. So this is like the first time I've read it since I wrote it, and this was back a few months ago. So I'm reading this, and I'm like, okay, wow. The angels in concourse, or these reserve angels, or these fully maturated angels, they go into the courts of the Lord, and they bring these sounds with them of the sounds of the intercession. In other words, these stomping feet of the biasin, and it's brought into the courts of the Lord. This intercession is. That's crazy. I love that. And then I wrote this. Well, it says, these go into the courts, and they bring the sounds, the biasins, the victory feet of those that intercede. I love that. Then I wrote this. Angels' wings are being refreshed because of the sounds of the intercession of the feet. Is that crazy? I don't even remember saying this. But the angels' wings are refreshed by the sounds of the intercession of the feet of the biasins. So your intercession puts out a sound. Your victorious intercession brings it aerates the soil. Oh my gosh, it aerates the soil. It aerates the soil, and as the earth is aerated, it brings life to the wings of the angels. Your feet bring refreshing to angels' wings. So, and then I put in quotations, biasin feet, victory sounds. and then I put landowners. We ask the land be overturned. Angels of God, bring this sound over the land and clear the land. Bring the Lord of bring the lords of the land in right order. Okay, I think I stopped there with this prayer. I think I did. I may have a second part. I'll have to go back and see. I may have a second part. I'll have to go back and listen to that recording. This came out of a time where I was I was just cleaning. I was cleaning, vacuuming, dusting, and all of a sudden the Spirit of the Lord came on me, and I started talking about war horses. And so I put this down in the recording, and I just tucked it away. I didn't think much about it for several weeks, but there was some time within that time frame afterwards that I received a message from a friend that had moved away. It was a young lady and her husband that have a ministry, Land of the Living, and Bethany messaged me one evening. Well, I think it was, maybe, and it was one morning. Anyway, I read it that Sunday morning. It was a Sunday morning back a few months ago, and she wrote in this message. I can't take it verbatim because it's on my phone, and I'm recording on my phone right now, but I'm trying to remember. She said something like, Charlotte, I hesitated once, and I don't want to hesitate again, but I heard the Lord tell me something, and I know that He's wanting me to tell you. And she goes, what it is I'm supposed to tell you is that you are a type of an Anna. You are an intercessor like Anna. And I was like, I almost lost my breath. I almost lost my breath. So I messaged her back a message. But this was a confirmation from her to me that this prayer that I prayed was from the Lord. And it made me want to go back and listen to it and write it down. So at the beginning of this prayer, I wrote, war horses, frontline foot soldiers. These are your women. These are those that have been waiting for such a time as this. They've been held back. But these are the ones that are the international global intercessors that you're using in this end time to shift nations. Okay, I wrote that. And then she says that to me later. Okay, so I wrote her back and I says, yeah, the Lord told me something. It was crazy. And I wrote it down. It was like intercession moment I had with the Lord, and it was crazy. I recorded it because it was so strong. I knew I wasn't gonna remember any of it, and the Lord has been teaching me for months about recording my prayer or recording my intercession time with the Lord, however you want to say it. And I'm so glad that I recorded it, and I wrote, a little spot to Bethany and just kind of told her that, and it was like, we were like high-fiving each other. Within the span of time, after, there was another span of time after I got this prophetic word, before Bethany gave me that prophetic confirmation, I was talking to my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, and she's going to marry my son. So excited. But I was telling her, the Lord told me something, and I don't really know what to make of it, but I feel like I need to say something to you about it. And it was just a conversation we had, and it was like, the Lord kind of just like told me this, and I don't really know what to make of it, but I'm just gonna tell you. I don't know why I'm telling you, but I don't even know if I use these words when I talk to Emily. But I said, the Lord told me that I was a global intercessor. And I'm like, okay. And I let it go. And then I get this confirmation from Bethany. And then I go back to Emily and I go, because they're friends. And I go back to Emily and I go, our friend Bethany told me something, read this, or I read it to her or something like that. And she looks at me like, What? Oh, wow. That's pretty, like, confirmation. That's some confirmation upon confirmation. So the Lord is trying to get a word over to me that I am a global intercessor. And I don't just say these things just because um, I like to hear my voice say it, or I like to hear myself say it, you know, or I want to have people know, because I don't really care if you know. I don't mind if you know, but I don't really care that you know. But I don't mind. Um, but I think this word is not just because I need to hear it. I think this word is because there's a lot of people that are out there right now that maybe are enduring with this video, because this has gone on 20 minutes now. And for those that love intercession, I hope that you've stayed around and listened to all of this, because you're going to need to hear this. You are those that are intercessors. You need to hear you need to hear this to encourage you in this end time. These times where God is moving on the land, and He is in need of you. He really, really is in need of you. And He wants me to encourage you, to tell you that there may be times where you are literally putting a spotlight on the enemy. You are literally taking your intercession and spotlighting the enemy in such a way that it is completely shattering his works. And you have the feet of Bison running. As you intercede, you are actually running the enemy out of the camp. Any places where he's at, that he is directing his vomit and his scourge on the land, you are running him out of town. And he is hearing your feet, and you are stomping. You don't physically have to stomp. This intercession that you're speaking, it's a voice. It's the voice of the Lord, and it's running the enemy out. And he hears it as feet stomping. He hears it as such a testimony of the faithfulness of the Lord. He is terrified. The enemy is terrified at how you are causing the fullness of the works of the Lord to come to full fruition. So this brings resolve to the land, and it's actually this angel of maturation. It brings in the angels to fully come to the fullness of what the Lord has made them to be created to do. It even brings strength to angels when the angels that are around, that are listening. It strengthens them, and it defeats the enemy's work. It strengthens the angels, and it brings this air, or this circulation, or this prayer strengthens them, and it takes all the power out of the enemy, and it encourages the angels to bring a refreshing to them. It says, I'll repeat this one more time as I prayed. It says, this stomping or running out in victory, these intercessors, the way that they pray in the inner court, it brings the sound. It's like the sound of Bison's feet running.